As of filming this, last night was the Grammys, and a girl group called KATSEYE that many people didn't know of before, but many of the people watching this may know, performed. They were also there nominated as Best New Artist, competing alongside established artists like Leon Thomas, the Marias, and Lola Young. A lot of people were expecting them to perform their nominated song Gabriella, but they ended up performing their song Gnarly. And there's been a lot of conversation around this online, as Gnarly is one of their most argued about songs. There's a lot of different receptions on it. And since the Grammys is putting them in front of so many different eyes, so many people that might not have heard about KATSEYE beforehand, there's been a lot of hate towards them. And I'm just going to make it clear, I'm not trying to further that. We're not going to be talking about KATSEYE being good or bad, but I want to acknowledge that these girls are not the ones writing, creating, or really have any say over what songs and music they're performing. Yes, these girls are Grammy nominated and performed at the Grammys, but are they themselves the ones getting this honor, or is it the corporate team behind them? How big of an honor is it to be at the Grammys and perform and be nominated if you don't have any say over what your music is or what your identity as an artist is? So they debuted about a year and a half ago. They didn't end up winning New Artist, that went to Olivia Dean, but their presence at the ceremony is what we need to talk about. We don't need to talk about this because KATSEYE is good or bad, or because the girls don't deserve success, because they certainly do, anyone does, who has passion and puts in work for their art. But we need to talk about what KATSEYE as a group represents and the shift in how pop music works. And it's worth examining what we're gaining and what we're losing in that shift. And last night's ceremony made those gains and losses impossible to ignore. So to give a little bit of a background on the group KATSEYE, they're a 6-member girl group, and they were formed through this Netflix survival show called The Debut Dream Academy. It aired in 2023 on Netflix, and they're managed by HYBE, which is the Korean company behind BTS, which is a massively successful group worldwide, and they're also managed by Geffen Records, both very massive corporate companies. The members are Menon, Sophia, Daniela, Lara, Yoonchae, and Megan, and they debuted with their ages ranging from 16 to 21. A big draw of this group is that they're from different countries and have all different backgrounds, all brought together from this Dream Academy show. So there's a lot that can happen with that, right? A lot of unique perspectives and backgrounds that can go into their music and songs and performances, right? It feels like their management company has almost thrown this out the window. A lot of the criticism of their group and their music from people who have that insight that this is a corporately managed music group is that it doesn't feel like it has any soul in it. And it makes sense because this is music produced by a boardroom, not music produced by these 6 girls. And also the ages are a whole other mess. So to anyone familiar with K-pop groups, this whole practice of forming a group through an elimination show is not anything super new. But to a Western audience, it does sound pretty bizarre, especially now that we're seeing the success of KATSEYE that has come from a Netflix show in which a bunch of people competed for these spots, which are now performing at the Grammys of all places. It really shows how manufactured all of this success is. Of course, manufactured success is nothing new. If we dove deeper on the other artists present at the Grammys, I'm sure you could find so much. So much on the labels, management, and rich families behind them. But seeing this group form from seemingly out of nowhere and achieve massive success over just a couple years, it really puts it right in front of our faces. Their music is created by teams of professional songwriters and producers. They've worked with people like Ryan Tedder, Kashmir Kat, Charlie XCX, and other established hitmakers. I actually didn't know Charlie XCX wrote for them until recently. She apparently worked on Gabriella, one of their latest songs, and what they are nominated for, so shouts out. So yes, they were Grammy nominated, and they just performed at the Grammys. They walked the red carpet, got interviewed alongside established artists, and were treated as legitimate contenders in one of music's most prestigious categories. And again, this isn't saying that the girls don't deserve it. By all accounts, they're talented, hardworking performers who went through intense competition and training processes. This is more of an examination of what it takes to succeed in pop music, and whether the path that's been laid out for them, the only path available, is actually serving artists or just serving the industry? Because I'm not so sure anymore. And I think a lot of people are looking into this and having doubts. So let's look more into Dream Academy.
Dream, Dream Academy. Dear Sophia, Adela,
We are delighted to extend our heartfelt congratulations to you.
Your exceptional talent has been selected as one of the top 20 from around the globe,
earning you a coveted spot in the Dream Academy.
20 girls from around the world auditioned for the debut Dream Academy. They ended up living together, training together, competing in weekly missions, and they got eliminated one by one while cameras documented literally everything for Netflix. It was all filmed. And the show was designed to be both a competition and a marketing strategy. Viewers got invested in the contestants, picked out favorites, felt protective of certain girls, and really rooted for them. And by the time the final 6 were selected, there was this built-in fan base for them already. The ones that had watched them struggle and succeed all throughout the show. People were already emotionally attached. And that's how the K-pop model works. Survival shows like Produce 101 have been creating groups this way for years. And even outside of these competition shows, a lot of K-pop's group success come from a rabid fan base and stans who are emotionally attached to them and will do anything for them. And just so they don't crucify me, because yes, they are rabid, I'm glad you guys can have your fun. But these groups are actively making money off of the way that these stan fandoms work, and they're using you. So there's something different about applying this model in a Western context and having this girl group be global rather than a K-pop group. So in Korea, this is already an established part of entertainment culture. Everyone who watches the shows and knows the groups understands the system. Companies invest in trainees, train them super intensely, form groups strategically, and control every aspect of their image and output. And that's expected. But in Western culture, we still have this mythology around authenticity with artists. We believe that artists develop organically, that success comes from talent, hard work, and that what we're seeing is genuine rather than carefully constructed and marketed. Charli XCX just blew up on TikTok, right? That wasn't a big marketing strategy on her end. Same with really anyone you look at. There's a lot of songs specifically designed to blow up online, so it just looks organic and not like something that's been promoted. It's a really big illusion that we have to maintain here. It keeps the dream of the singer-songwriter rising to success alive. Of course, there's some success stories. Chappell Roan's success, for example, seems pretty organic. Maybe I'll look into that further later down the line. But once she got picked up and noticed, there was a lot of corporate backing behind her and manufactured success. But that initial spark was there. So yeah, the myth stays alive from these small success stories, but it blinds us from seeing that so many of the actual successful artists just have so much money behind them. So when that construction is this visible, this documented on a Netflix show, and this transparent, it creates this weird cognitive dissonance, like it feels off in a way. We're watching a process that has always happened behind closed doors, except now it's on Netflix, to an audience that hasn't been aware before. And we're not quite sure how to feel about it. Like, is this cool because it's transparent and we see these girls rise to success? Or is it weird because now we're seeing how manufactured and fake it all is? So here's what strikes me as both impressive and concerning at the same time. Hive and Geffen figured out how to optimize the path from unknown to Grammy nominee in 18 months, about a year and a half. And they combined Korean entertainment industry efficiency with American music industry connections and resources. And it worked. In a year and a half, KATSEYE has performed at major festivals, received Grammy nominations, performed at the actual Grammys, met so many celebrities, interviewed with so many people, and secured so many brand partnerships. They built a very significant social media following and fan base. They're icons. But this is not organic growth. And people are aware of this in some ways. But instead, this is what happens when you have access to unlimited resources, strategic planning, industry connections, and a proven formula. It worked exactly as intended. But the question is this what we want success to look like? Especially in the music scene. Because here's the thing, the more these companies can get away with this being transparent and have no backlash, the more they will do it. And I'm not saying you should not support KATSEYE, but we want to look critically at why and how they have risen to success this fast. What we should question is whether the system actually allows them to develop as artists, or if it just turns them into very polished performers of other people's visions, and puts them in front of this massive audience with everything set up for them, rather than them being able to express themselves authentically. Because right now, KATSEYE performs music written by professional songwriters. They execute choreography designed by professional choreographers. Most singers do, right? But this is presented in a way that curates an image specifically designed by professional stylists, creative directors, and their management companies overall. There's so much that goes behind it. They follow a promotional strategy designed down to the T by their labels. About everything is designed by someone else. And that's fine for now, right? They're new, they're young, they're still learning, but what happens in 5 years? In 10 years? Do they ever get to develop their own artistic voices? Are they even going to still be a group by then? Do they get to write music that actually reflects their experiences and perspectives? Do they get to take creative risks at all? Or does the system they've entered require them to maintain vessels for corporate pop because that's what's profitable? That's what's safe, that's what makes them the most money, that's what the machinery is designed to support. The music itself is where the limitations of this model become the most apparent. So KATSEYE's songs are competent, polished pop tracks. They're catchy in a way, they follow current trends, and you can tell money went into these tracks. There's a lot of backlash because some of them are just so all over the place. Because again, this group doesn't really have a set theme or artistic vision or voice. And that's why each of their releases so far has had a really different tone of voice. That's why you get people really liking Touch, really being confused at Gnarly, really liking Gabriella, and then hating Internet Girl. It's like back and forth, because these girls aren't actually putting their thoughts and feelings and artistic vision into this. They have no say over it at all. There's no distinctive artistic identity. They just have the sound of a 2024 pop music or a hypothetical girl group. Like, it could be put onto anyone. And it's not the girls' fault, it's the inevitable result of this approach. When you form a group through a competition, immediately sign them into labels and put them in front of so many people, have professional songwriters create music that they've never had time beforehand to develop their own artistic identity, you get music that's technically proficient, it sounds fine, but it lacks soul and a distinct point of view. Compare this to how artists used to develop. You would spend years making music, figuring out your sound, building up a small fan base, taking risks, failing, learning, growing, and not having the massive audience to make fun of you and post about you when you do take these risks and maybe fail a little bit. By the time you've had your breakthrough, you have time to develop an artistic identity and to know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what works for you. You knew who you were as an artist, and KATSEYE didn't get that time. They went from competition, grinding for this spot, to debut in less than a year. Their artistic identity is being developed for them by a committee, while they're already in the spotlight. You see these girls under so much pressure. You see conflicts arise, frustration with members who miss practice, questions about whether someone's star power could outweigh their current skill level, tensions about who deserves to be there. And yes, since this is a reality show, a lot of this is fake for the audience, pitting these girls who just want a chance in the spotlight against each other for ratings. Yes, a lot of fans criticize the documentary for being scripted or for painting certain members as villains. What we're actually seeing is just what happens when you put young people under pressure in a competitive environment. And yes, it's dramatized for the audience, but they're teenagers and young adults being asked to compete while also forming a team, being told to support each other while knowing that only 6 out of the 20 will make it, living under cameras and constant surveillance while dealing with the real stress and high stakes. The 6 who make it immediately have to become a cohesive girl group and start promoting without the time to process that trauma and how much that competition weighed on them or develop actual bonds with each other outside of the survival. It's efficient, but it's not healthy, and it's certainly not conducive to artistic development. And here's where the cultural differences become really important. In K-pop, this system exists within a specific cultural context. Korean entertainment industry practices, labor expectations, and the relationship between idols and companies, these are understood within Korea's cultural framework. It's pretty horrendous in ways, but it's been like that for years upon years. It's not perfect at all. With billion-dollar management companies taking the lead, there's really no way around it. It exists within its own cultural logic. But when you transplant that system into a Western context, into the US, and having this be a global spectacle, it feels different because Western audiences aren't prepared for this level of control and manufacturing that is the standard in K-pop. We're used to at least a smidge of artistic autonomy. We expect artists to eventually develop creative control over their work. So you get this weird hybrid that doesn't quite work in either context. KATSEYE isn't Korean enough to embrace K-pop's cultural framework. They get so much backlash from them overseas. But they're too manufactured to feel authentic or really be authentic by Western pop standards. They're in this liminal space that's optimized for metrics and money, but unclear in artistic purpose. And Hype and Geffen are doing exactly what record labels are supposed to do. Invest in talent, provide resources, promote strategically, and try to achieve commercial success. You're just a business operating efficiently within the current music industry structure. The problem is that this current structure prioritizes efficiency over artistry, metrics over meaning, corporate control over actual artistic freedom and development. And it used to be that labels would sign artists, give them the resources they need, but also give them time and space to develop. Let them do their own thing. You didn't release music that didn't immediately top charts because you were building towards something, and you had your own identity. You'd experiment and fail and learn, and labels would invest in long-term artist development because they believed in building careers, not just launching products. And it seems like KATSEYE is the exact opposite of this. In every which way, they are a product. That's why I feel really bad for these girls, because they worked so hard for this opportunity, and yet they're really restricted in what they can do with it. And it's great that they're able to experience the spotlight and all of these brand ambassadorships and just overall success. But how long will it last? Because when you start developing artists backwards, where you throw them into the spotlight and then try to work out an artistic identity, rather than developing first and then achieving success, how long-term is that going to be? There's people talking about, oh, these KATSEYE girls, they are just waiting to disband. They're just waiting to go solo with their art, and I don't blame them if they are. They already have the audience, people are fans of them individually, and we know that they have no control over the music they're making. Wouldn't they be more successful if they got to do their own thing? What kind of artist are we creating with this backward system? And what kind of music? The Grammy nominations perfectly illustrated both the success and the problem. So KATSEYE got nominated for Best New Artist and Best Pop Duo Group Performance. They were competing against artists who have building careers for years, who have released substantial bodies of work, and who've developed distinct artistic identities. But KATSEYE has something that those artists might not. They have the combined resources and connections of HYBE and GFN. They have publicists, industry relationships, strategic positioning right out of the gate. They have the ability to get their music in front of Grammy voters through institutional power rather than just cultural impact. The nomination was very impressive, but it also revealed that success in the music industry is increasingly divorced in a way from organic artistic development and increasingly dependent on corporate infrastructure and backing. Watching them perform last night, you could see that machinery at work. The choreography was more of the focus. The staging was expensive and polished, and their outfits were all put together. People were surprised that this is the song they chose to perform. People were confused at what outfits they were wearing. It just goes to show that HYBE and GFN, whoever decided what they were going to perform on the Grammys stage, was going to be their most divisive and viral song that they have released so far. Gnarly received such a crazy backlash and then whipped from that negative perception to people saying, oh, you just didn't get it. And then it becoming pretty popular in its own way. Rather than a song like Gabriella, where it's actually showing off their vocals, Gnarly is a song more focused on the dance than anything else. If you watch them perform, there's not really any parts that they're actually singing or showing off their vocal talent. It's more shock value lyrics, almost like spoken word, and then shouting. It's really hard for this song to be as good live because there's not much to perform. Honestly, it only makes sense if you watch it. So yeah, everything was technically executed well, but what was missing was any sense of who these artists are beyond this performance and virality. What do they want to say? What matters to them? What's their perspective? We don't know because they haven't been given the opportunity or space or time to figure that out themselves, and they're so restricted in what they can say. Again, people were confused at their outfits because everything seems fine on the surface, but what is the deeper connection? It doesn't really seem like there is one. It's just what these corporations think will go viral. And what's most sad is that they don't consider the girls. It's great that they have this success, but by getting nominated by the Grammys, they're validating this entire model of developing an artist. By treating this manufactured from scratch pop as equivalent to artists with developed bodies of work, the Recording Academy has said this is fine and this is the future we're okay with, and we don't see any distinction between this and other artists. And it's worth interrogating that because Grammys have always claimed to represent artistic excellence. They position themselves as the most prestigious awards in music, the ultimate validation of an artist's work. But they can't have their cake and eat it too. How are they trying to be so uppity, not even showcasing some awards on TV because it's not worth it? And then also have these girls nominated and perform out of virality and then not even win an award. Does the Grammys want to be prestigious and artsy, or do they want to be a sort of YouTube recap of music for the year? Looking at the other new artist nominees, Leon Thomas wrote a full album that he produced and wrote himself. The Marias have been building their sound for years and there's so much lore behind them. Olivia Dean, who won, was releasing music since 2019. She developed her artistic voice and put out a critically acclaimed album. And then there's KATSEYE, whose music was written by professional songwriters who probably haven't even met the girls before the group even existed. So the Grammys have always had issues with what they reward. And honestly, it's worth interrogating whether the Grammys mean anything anymore as well, and what value we should put into these awards when about every artist works really hard for what they have. Especially in the past, they've historically overlooked hip-hop, ignored entire genres, given awards to people based on industry politics and who the voters know personally rather than artistic merit. But this feels like a new problem, not just failing to recognize great art, but actively legitimizing the elimination of artistry from pop music. Because make no mistake, when the Grammys nominate and act like KATSEYE in the same category as artists who have spent years developing their craft, they're saying those are one and the same. That development and having personal choice and freedom in your artistry doesn't matter. That a big corporation's creative side project is the same as artists who actually have a say in their music. It's a little ridiculous. But what can you do? I think the main issue is more that if the KATSEYE girls were equally as talented as they are right now, but just not in the group KATSEYE together and not backed by Hybe and Geffen, would they ever achieve Grammy status? Would they ever be on that stage? This status and success and chance of getting nominated is all dependent on billions of dollars being put into you. In the end, the idea of an independently successful artist is a myth, and it has been dead for quite a while. What matters is not what you want to say with your music. What matters is marketability, resources, and industry backing. Last night's ceremony was a parade of this tension. The Grammys claim to celebrate artistic excellence while also validating a model that explicitly removes artistry from the equation. This isn't just with KATSEYE, it's with so many people who get their foot in the door just because they have the money or the connections. What are we actually rewarding? Are we celebrating music that matters and that pushes boundaries, that represents an artist's vision? Is it really so prestigious as we've been claiming? Or are we just rubber stamping whatever has the most industry muscle and plays behind it? Because if it's the latter, if Grammy nominations can be bought through corporate infrastructure and strategic positioning, then what's the point? Does it really mean anything? Why should anyone care about these awards if they just are reflecting the same corporate consolidation that's been destroying the music industry in the same step? A common critique I get on my videos is you're looking too far into this. And to that I say, thank you to the 1,000 people who have subscribed to me who understand that looking deep into things is exactly what we need to do. A nomination can change careers, open doors, and provide so much validation. So when the Grammys use that power to legitimize manufacturing over artistry, they're not just making a passive observation about the industry, but they're actively shaping what success looks like. What they're doing is telling young artists that this is what we value and what everyone values. 5 corporate written songs backed by massive labels is as worthy as years of artistic development, maybe more worthy, because at least it's commercially viable. KATSEYE's Grammy nomination means that other companies will copy this model even more aggressively. I think it's fun to have more girl groups and boy groups and just groups in general. It's something that we've missed since the 2000s, and it's fun to have it come back. I mean this in the West. It foreshadows a shift that might be taking place. Other companies are developing similar projects. The more this proves profitable, the more it becomes the standard. But now it's not just profitable, it's Grammy backed. We're moving toward a future where pop music is entirely corporate produced, where creative control is handed over to companies in exchange for resources and promotion, where the only way to succeed and get your foot in the door is to surrender artistic autonomy before you've even developed an artistic identity. And maybe that's inevitable, but it's worth acknowledging what we're losing. And the Grammys, which should be championing artistic integrity, which should be creating space for artists to take risks and develop and celebrate them, are accelerating this trend instead. And here's what I wish for KATSEYE. I wish they had the same resources, the same platform, and the same opportunities, but with creative freedom. I wish they had been given time to develop as artists before being thrust into the spotlight, and that they would be able to contribute to their own music from the start. And I hope that comes for them in the future. I wish their success wasn't contingent on surrendering creative control entirely, and that there's an option for these young artists to access corporate resources and be this equally successful so fast without becoming corporate products. The industry has no interest in changing the system because why would they? It's working exactly as designed. Hoping doesn't really change the reality of what KATSEYE is right now. We've perfected the manufacturing of pop stars, but at the same time, we've lost space for artists to actually develop. What do you hope to see for KATSEYE? Let me know. Again, this isn't hate. Icons don't come for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you.